topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
This is Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. Do you want to live a more fulfilling life? Do you want to live your legacy and achieve your personal, professional, and financial goals? Well, coming up on Divya Parekh's Beyond Confidence, you will hear real stories of leaders, entrepreneurs, and achievers who have stepped into discomfort, shattered their status quo, and are living the life they want. You will learn how relationships are the key to achieving your aspirations and financial goals. Moving your career or business forward does not have to happen at the expense of your personal or family life, or vice versa. Learn more at www.divyaparekh.com, and you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. This is Beyond Confidence, and now here's your host, Divya Parekh.
Good evening, listeners. My favorite time of the week. I get to be with you. So, folks, for those of you who have bought our books, thank you, thank you, thank you. And for those who have not got our books, feel free to check us out on Amazon, The Entrepreneur's Garden, Expert to Influencer, amongst several of the books that we have. So, folks, I wanted to share a quick story with you. So, my marketing team kind of reached out to me and shared that my book was in bestseller after 4 years. The Entrepreneur's Garden, so thrilled, and thank you for getting and for generosity, because part of the profits are going to entrepreneurs impacted by COVID-19. So thank you for supporting us in our venture. And as you all recall, I am asking you to share 1 hour of your time every month with no strings attached, either with your loved one, with your community member, or someone. So that is as part of Connect One, doing that one kindness act or supporting someone. So we are going to bring our guest in, Leah Guy. Welcome, Leah.
Having me.
So, folks, Leah is an entrepreneur. She's author, speaker, trainer, coach, and she's a radio show host as well. So welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. Looking forward to what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. So, folks, as you all know, we do not have canned script. We always have organic conversations, and we let the conversation take us wherever it takes us. So, Leah, let's travel back a little bit in your childhood and see if you recall any fun memories from childhood or any moments that left a mark on you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh, I have a lot. I remember I loved to take a fake microphone and go around and interview people. And so that was a lot of fun. I learned how to play the piano when I was young. And so I remember some family nights, playing music and dancing around the house and all that. I also have a bizarre memory of, I think I had a worm farm when I was young. I took to liking worms, and it was special to me. I like to be outside and digging through the dirt. So those are a few things. Yeah.
Yeah. Worms can be fun. I remember, when you are talking about that, it strikes a memory in my childhood as well, where what I would do is I would catch worms, and I used to love bird watching. And what I would do is I would just kind of take a small bowl, put the worms in there, and put it on trees. Like, I used to love climbing trees. And then after a few, I don't know, like must have got a bee in my bonnet, so to speak. And the bowls started going missing. And my mom is like, what is happening? Where the bowls are going? I told her, they're on trees. I'm picking out worms for the birds. So, yeah, it's some childhood.
It's nice to have those
fun.
memories.
Sure is. And it's important to bring it back in our adult lives, because so many times we tend to forget what we knew as children. So, Leah, tell us as you grew, where were you interested in high school and what happened? Like, did you pursue your high school interests?
In high school? Oh, yeah. I think I've kind of, I've explored a lot of things and moved a lot and,
Mm,
lived a lot of different places. But I think overall, when I look at my life from when I was a young child, I was always interested in health and wellness and
mm,
spirituality um, and I'm still doing health and wellness and spirituality. I was also very interested in the media and interviewing people, which I have done over the years in a variety of capacities. Um, and otherwise, yeah, music, art, um, those are still two of my passions, yoga. So I don't know that a lot has really changed. I mean, a lot has, of course, but the main things that I've always been interested in and doing, I still am doing.
well, that's phenomenal because so many people have those passions and then they just tend to lose it in the conundrums and doldrums of lives.
Right.
And to keep the life exciting, to keep that vibrancy going in life, it's so critical that we pursue our passions. And that doesn't mean that you gotta just kind of all you gotta do is pursue your passions. It's you can have that balance too. So tell me, as you grew in your 20s and all that, what was your focus on? Did you pursue further education?
Yeah, I went to college. I actually went to four different schools
Hmm.
and finished in 5 years and again, moved around a lot. And I studied communication, broadcast communication, and, some other studies while in school and graduated and went right into the health food world and seeing clients in schools for healing and wellness
Hmm.
and working and marketing and media and TV. So again, it's kind of still following the same path of sorts, just figuring out the different paths that I wanted to try and be on.
Right.
I
So
moved around a lot.
nice. So you said that you moved in four different schools and finished your
Yeah.
schooling in 5 years. So what made you change schools?
The first one I went to was a small conservative school that I never really felt at home in. And then I became a missionary in Lake Tahoe
Hmm.
in California in the summer. And so then I went back the second summer and then I ended up moving there. And then I went to school close to Lake Tahoe in Reno. And then it got tough in the winters out in Tahoe. And so I thought, well, I'm just going to go back and finish school where in the same city I started in. And then I did that. And then I had a sexual assault. I was raped in
I'm
the
so sorry.
fall of that year. And then I couldn't stay there. So then I went back towards my home state and
Mm.
went to another school to finish college. So that's kind of how it happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you can tell me, if you don't want to talk about it.
Oh, I
That's
talk about it freely in all of my work.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that. Nobody should have to
Yeah.
go through that. And how did you move through that?
Well, through a lot of assistance and
Mhm.
prayer and, different therapies. And it's ultimately what led me, I think, to discover about energy healing and medicine and meditation and channeling and mindfulness. And I went to school to learn those things and then started applying them in my personal
Mhm.
practice. So, I mean, it was an awful few years for sure, you
Mhm.
know, um, depressed and making bad decisions and, just awful few years. But I'm fortunate that I was, able to find my center at some point and come back to myself and had resources around me and I utilized those.
Well, I'm very thankful that you found your way back to yourself and
Yeah.
after going through such a horrific experience. You mentioned about moving into media. Can you share your journey through the media?
Sure. When I was came out of college and I worked at that health food store, I became an on-air expert for health and wellness and supplements and mindfulness and a variety of things. So that, in addition, that I went to college for broadcasting and communication, of course, and then I moved to Los Angeles and I had additional training, voiceover training, commercial training, improv training, and did work in, small jobs and TV shows and films and so forth. And then learned the trade of producing and directing and so forth. And so I've just always had some projects, some iron in the fire in that world. And with the passion of, developing and creating a platform to help other people. And so that's what I've done. Like I said, in some form or another, I've had internet shows, I've had TV shows, I've had podcasts. I've been expert on hundreds and hundreds of podcasts and radio shows and TV shows. And sometimes more on the entertainment creative side, so that's fun too.
Oh, that sounds like fun. So when you tell about on entertainment and creative side, how do you find it different from being on the other side where you're sitting and interviewing people?
Oh, well, it's completely different because I'm either helping people and talking about my expertise.
Mm-hmm. So, folks, looks like we may have lost connection with Leah. And hopefully, oh, fantastic. Leah is back, folks.
Yeah. I don't know what happened.
That's good.
The creative part of your acting or performing, writing fiction, what have you. So it's very, very different. It's like two different worlds.
Absolutely. So what would you say was your more preferred choice, like sitting on this side or being a creative?
Oh, I love both of them. I mean, I don't necessarily, my specialty isn't editing and producing, although I know how. I don't love doing that, but I love being, sharing my knowledge in my chosen field just as much as I love entertaining people. But they're so different, that it's not really one or the other. Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. So as you move through you have shared with us that you stayed on wellness, art and music, along with the media, broadcasting and communication. So what would you say were a few things or people who helped you along your way?
What would I say? What was the question? Sorry.
So who would you say, whether it's people, your character traits, or anything else that has helped you along the way?
Certainly people. I mean, relationships I've had with people, but I would say that, you have to have a certain willpower and determination and knowing what you want and staying, tenacity, staying the course, depending on what you want out of what you're going for. So a lot of people find a natural stopping point, and there's nothing wrong with that. And then other people have a drive to continue and to grow and evolve and change, where their position, and that's fine too. So I think it's just really knowing who you are and what you expect and what you want and how you want to, feel at the end of your day and at the end of your week and at the end of your year. And what are you willing to do to make that happen, without sacrificing the wholeness of your life?
Absolutely. Yes, without sacrificing the wholeness of life. So if you were to describe wholeness in maybe a few words to sentences, how would you?
Well, I guess completion and connection, fullness.
Completion, yes. And do you refer that completion as finding that completion within yourself or through connection with others?
Well, I think it's both. I mean, we're, creatures who need and thrive on connection, and that same connection can be within us and with other people. And so when we're, internally connected, we'll feel whole. When we're spiritually connected, we'll feel whole. And when we're connected to other living creatures, we'll feel whole, I think. So it's always about that connection for me.
Yes. No, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And so many times what happens is that when you lose that connection, especially what has happened during pandemic, is that you feel that loneliness. You feel that gap.
Right.
And
Yeah.
one of the things I got to share is that being a coach for past year, not only 2020, but even as we are going into the latter part of 2021, it breaks my heart to see so many people feeling disconnected and distressed. So, Leah, you do talk about emotions. So, tell us about, do you have any preferred emotions, or do you just talk about emotions in general?
No, I don't think there's any preferred emotions. No, emotions are organic. I mean, we can't, dial them up just because we prefer them. So all emotions are valid. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's just important that we recognize and, learn to process them.
Mm-hmm. So let's say a lot of people are going through the negative spirals, not only during the COVID-19, but interestingly, one of my clients and we were talking today, and his company has mandated everybody gets back. There's no hybrid system. It was just like they were informed a month back. And he's one of those people who thrives being around other people. And that said, he was just kind of sharing with me. We were talking about his career advancement and what's to come next. And as we were talking about, he was like, so many people were grumbling because they have to be back at work. And it's almost like I used to think, gosh, I miss people. And now I am, I don't want to be around these people. So, what would you tell these people when they're experiencing those highs and lows?
Well, I mean, that's I think I'm understanding your question correctly, but we experience highs and lows every day, and learning how to, I guess, manage and process our emotions and temper our expectations of, what makes something good or bad. And also it's asking us to look at bigger questions in our lives of, how do we want to spend our time? Where do we want to spend our time? What are the most important things to us? And those are some really big questions that need our attention. And so, the pandemic changed a lot for a lot of people, but it's not like the world just shut down. So it is kind of been a time of reflection and looking at, how do I want to move forward? What's the most important thing for me? And some people's eyes may be opening that, I really don't want to I don't want to commute to work every day. I really don't enjoy being around 100 people in the office. And maybe they need to make a different choice. So as things change, we change, and we have to go with that change somehow. So I think it's really important to check in with oneself and see what's so disturbing. Where's our discontent? I can't hear you.
Duh. Oh, I had muted myself.
Ah.
So, folks, sometimes it's technology and sometimes it's us. So, you said it beautifully, Leah, that it's important to check in. And when you check in, whether it's highs or lows, it's just emotions. It's sometimes
Mhm.
almost like sitting in a plane and seeing those clouds pass you by. And as you talked about, like, if people are not feeling that resonance when they're going to work and finding that, oh, I don't want to be around 100 people, I don't want to talk to them. So sometimes what happens is that they may have experienced that downturn in their lives and healing needs to take place. So, where would somebody start with their healing?
Well, I have 3 books out. I don't know if you've gotten a copy of any of the books or anything, but um, healing is a very personal journey. But I think, seeking people that have similar experience and history and life experience, as well as education experience, that can be helpful based in trauma or um, family of origin issues. It just depends on what's happening. So education is a good first start, but a lot of people get stuck in just learning about things and not applying it to their life. So I would say, any kind of interactive work where you can integrate what you're learning into your life is helpful. Online courses, working with healers, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. And you definitely talk about toxic emotions. So, in your terminology, what would make an emotion toxic?
A toxic emotion is any valid emotion that's been held onto and unprocessed for too long.
Mm-hmm.
So that's in short what it is.
And do you have any stories that you could share with us?
Oh gosh, there's a lot of stories. There's a lot of stories in the book. I think just for everyone, we all have our own stories of knowing when we're in, for example, an argument or a confrontation with a loved one, and then we don't stand up for ourselves, and then we say everything's okay, and then 3 months we're still upset about that thing, and then we abandon our own self because we're not standing up for ourselves, and then we're holding resentment for the other person, and now we're in a loop of toxic discomfort and pain. So that's one story, that I think happens very frequently for a lot of people.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that is that balance. It doesn't matter, whether it's with your spouse or with your partner, with your friend, there is this balance. So let's say somebody's experiencing a balance. I just want to take one story and see where would you take them. So let's say there is this young gentleman who comes in a new arena, whether it's a new company or whether it's a new circle of friends, and he is making efforts to fit in, but it's almost like 2 or 3 people, not everybody in the team or group, they kind of give him a cold shoulder. How should he go about it?
I would say stay true to himself, go to the higher management and be clear about any kind of, issue that seems to be present, but not feed into it, not try to instigate something or fix other people's feelings. I think, the hardest thing for us to do is to stay in our own truth and our confidence and to continue with our own integrity. And keep showing up without being obnoxious, without being assertive, without being, without playing a game, and just do what we're there to do. It's not our business how other people are doing, what they're doing or how they're feeling. So if someone has a cold shoulder, that's too bad for them. Can we just keep going? And I think that's the higher road. If there's confrontation or if you want to inquire, then of course, step into that role. But a lot of people make assumptions and they don't know how to have those kinds of conversations intelligently and emotionally.
Absolutely. So what happens is, we can call them difficult conversations, tough conversations, whatever conversations we want to talk about. So sometimes you can get away by not having conversation, especially if somebody is your friend, but you're not interacting with them that often. But somebody who is in your sphere, in your face, day in and day out, and you gotta interact with them. So, what would be a good way of opening up a conversation like that?
It's such a hard question because there's so many nuances,
Mhm.
like who are the people? Have they known each other a long time? Do they like,
So let's I'll just play along a couple of scenarios, so because it will help our listeners,
uh-huh.
because what's happening is that in past, unfortunately or fortunately, in past year and a half, people have become short wired. And when I say short wired, is that people are losing their patience really fast. You open a TV channel and you'll see these fights that's happening in the travel space on airplanes. Or I have seen, like, people being really rude on roads, or even during sitting down for dinners or something like that, if they're polarized on with two different opinions. So a few years back, it seemed like, okay, you would agree to disagree, but you would not come to blows. And now it just seems like people are just ready
Hmm.
to come to blows. And that's where I want us to take a step back. I want us to shift the focus from me to we. So if we flip the M in me, it becomes we. So there may be case, as you mentioned it beautifully, that stay in your truth. You're staying in your truth, and yet there may be somebody who is confrontational, who may be kind of, picking on you so that
Hmm.
they're trying to get under your skin.
Hmm.
And sometimes it's important to have that conversation. So let's say this is somebody you got to interact with. You
Hmm.
don't know them very well. Maybe you've known them a couple of months and you have to work with them.
Hmm. Well,
How
I
would you go
think,
about it?
bringing as much compassion and listening as possible to understand their issue and their perception is important, and having clear boundaries for oneself of, whether it's how long you engage or whatever boundaries are important for you that help you stay in your center. And, but for me overall, I guess whether it's this particular kind of scenario or the fighting on the airplane scenario, this is why the importance of the work of our personal self-care and growth and emotional healing work is so important. It's not, if we just look at what's happening today and try to patch things and fix things and how can we respond differently in this moment, I mean, that's a great awareness to have. But if we don't look at when we get triggered,
Mhm.
what our patterns are, what upsets us the most, what are the toxic emotions we're holding on to, what are the complex PTSD, memories that are happening when we're on the plane or in front of our coworkers or what have you. Like, we have to take responsibility for that stuff. And if we're not, then it's just going to show up everywhere else in our lives. So we can talk about this scenario, that scenario, and one could coach the other person on what to do. But until a person recognizes, oh, I have some work to do to create my own boundaries. I have some work to do for the negative criticism that goes on in my head and how
Mhm.
I judge other people. I have work to do that I have a chip on my shoulder. I have, I don't love myself enough. Like, until we go there, then all we're doing is patchwork, you know?
Absolutely. You said it. And it's until you go to the root cause and seeing what is causing it, looking at your own thinking traps. Because so many times what happens is, as you mentioned, that a lot of people are hard on themselves, experiencing that imposter syndrome. That where are all those emotions stemming from? And you do talk about energy imprints. Can you shed some light on it?
Sure. They are imprints that are formed in our belief system primarily when we're in our developmental years in a young age. And it's basically everything that we take in as our reality, from emotions and truths and opinions and the way people look at us and the way we're cared for, and what love is and what happiness is and what safety is and what family is, relationships, all of that. So we develop these imprints according to, what we observe and experience. And it filters into our brain, obviously, but it also filters into our emotional body and how we're understanding and relating to other people, and into our energy field, how we're sensing the world, how we're interacting in that sensory way, in that subtle awareness way of what is safe, what is good, what is familiar, what is, all the judgments that we make about how life goes. So that's what they are.
Absolutely. So you have talked about, energy imprints are something that have been imprinted there through your beliefs, memories, and how do you sense the world and how you're interacting with it. And most of the time in healing, people talk about letting go. And yet you advocate that letting go is not one of the best pieces of advice for healing. Why is
Yeah.
that?
Because it's often just a form of detachment. And so we're trying to, detachment in certain ways and certain philosophies is a positive thing. But when we're trying to detach or avoid the reality of feelings that we've had, then we just lead our mind into a scattered state or a dissociated state or a sociopathic state. It's like we're saying what happened and how I felt isn't real. And how then do we trust ourselves to feel and to know what we experience if we're spending all of our time trying to forget and deny what was real? And so it often causes people a lot of anxiety. And like I said, just kind of either dissociating from the event or the experience, or for themselves, worse yet, or, never truly accepting and acknowledging what's happening and what is real for oneself. So that's what it's about for me. And, I know a lot of people, just go on and on about just let it go, let it go. And my question always is, and put it where, and in my book, I say there's no cosmic trash can. We don't just dump the things that we don't want into a cosmic trash can. I understand the releasing tension. I understand, observing thoughts and letting them move on. All of that is part of the flow and the process. But this forced idea of, oh, just get over it, just let it go, it's not healthy. So that's my stance on it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's about giving it time to process and just moving along on its own. So now you've mentioned that you gotta acknowledge it, you gotta take responsibility. What would be the next step to understanding these stories that are popping up in and out of your head and dealing with them?
Well, I'm not going to give away the whole book, but there's a 3-step process in the book.
Okay.
Yeah, there's it's part of the 3 steps, and acceptance is another very important element of that, and not just saying that we accept something, but really working through what genuine acceptance means, what it does for us, and how it clears so much of the old story and the patterns that are associated with our story. And our own self-deprecating behavior, when we move into acceptance. So I would say that that's the next important piece.
Yeah, absolutely. When you talk about acceptance, a lot of people say that, oh, acceptance means that you're condoning what's not right. And I always say that acceptance does not mean agreement. And at the same breath, you can say that agreement does not mean approval. Acceptance is just situation is, because there are so many things that we don't question. We don't question that why sun rising in the east, why the sun is setting in the west. It just is. And when we go into mindfulness, being in the present rather than sticking in the past or worrying about the future. So staying in the present brings so much more to life and giving that gift to yourself. And do you have any thoughts on mindfulness?
Oh, yeah. I have a lot of thoughts on mindfulness. What do you want to talk about?
How do you see mindfulness being as an integral part of a person's well-being?
Well, I think the big one of the biggest pieces of mindfulness is just learning how to release our attachment and expectation to our feelings. When we can just be with in the moment instead of expect to feel a certain way because that's the way we felt yesterday or in that last relationship or the last time we saw our parents or what have you, then we get to practice what does it really feel like to be me right now, and so that's a really big deal, especially for people who are very used to feeling anxious all the time and they feel like they're constantly, worried or have anxious thoughts, and just to break those moments down to maybe we're not really having anxious thoughts every second, but you have the expectation that you're going to because you're always thinking about how it was before or what it could be. And so I think that that's, really critical of learning to trust ourselves and trust the moment in the universe to just explore what is the truth right now. What does this moment feel like and smell like and look like?
Absolutely. Beautiful. So we have talked about a lot of deep questions. Would you be up for having some fun?
Sure.
Okay. So these are just kind of like, left field questions, if that's okay with you.
Yep.
All right. So let's say if you had to give up eating chocolate. I don't know if you like chocolate or not. Or watching your favorite TV show. I don't even know that you have one. Which one would you let go of?
Probably the chocolate.
Okay. Well, and if you could have one superpower, what might that be?
To astral travel.
Oh, very cool. So I bet then you do like those superhero movies as well.
No, I mean, it's funny because I don't really watch those movies that much, but yeah, sometimes.
Okay. So let's say if you had the whole day for yourself and nothing is planned and you are just kind of meandering, you have multiple things you can do, and you can be spontaneous. What are a few things that you would do?
I have a lot of those days. I always do my yoga in the morning, and I would definitely take a long walk, preferably by water or in nature. And then if I was meandering, I'd like to meander through either little markets or little shops and then get inspired. I like to go to plant nurseries and little gift stores and just get inspired. And maybe I would create something or work on something at home and paint or, make something look pretty in a new way, something like that.
Oh, fantastic. If you were given a choice, whether if you could go to moon or Mars, where would you go and why?
I don't have any interest in either, really. Maybe
Well,
I guess I'd go to the moon, though.
well, it's closer to Earth. So,
Yeah.
Definitely. So, share with us where could our listeners connect with you if they wanted to stay in touch? How can they do that?
Sure. On my website, which is my name, leahguy.com, LeahGuy, and on social media at Leah Guy Live.
And where's the best place to find all of your 3 books?
They're available anywhere books are sold on, all the bookstores and Audible as well.
Fantastic. And if you were to tell our listeners two takeaways they could take and implement in their lives straight away, what would those be?
To reach out when you need support in your life and some guidance or any kind of support, and that everyone has equal value, no matter what we do, how much money we make, or how we look.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. And would you like to share anything about your courses, programs?
No, I will say I have a podcast myself, the Modern Sage podcast, and my books are The Fearless Path and Spiritual Journal for Women and Overcoming Toxic Emotions. And my courses are mostly on Daily Om. I teach on Insight Timer, and I have a Patreon channel. So those are the places, of course, Instagram and Facebook and all that. You can find me too.
Absolutely. Well, it was a pleasure having you on the show, Leah.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And listeners, thank you for joining us. Without you, the show would not be possible. And lastly, but not the least, Rebel for making the show possible. Folks, until next time, be well and stay strong. Take care.
Thank you for being part of Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. We hope you have learned more about how to start living the life you want. Each week on Beyond Confidence, you hear stories of real people who've experienced growth by overcoming their fears and building meaningful relationships. During Beyond Confidence, Divya Parekh shares what happened to her when she stepped out of her comfort zone to work directly with people across the globe. She not only coaches people how to form heart connections, but also transform relationships to mutually beneficial partnerships as they strive to live the life they want. If you are ready to live the life you want and leverage your strengths, learn more at www.divyaparekh.com. And you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. We look forward to you joining us next week, Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time.